Hi guys, it is Tammy, Cheers to Creativity, and we are going to be doing our summer gnomes this evening on glass. Now I have some little bit of housekeeping, so to speak, before we begin. I'm first of all letting you know that Facebook again has decided to change the way I can manipulate the camera in the groups, and I didn't know that until just a few minutes ago. I'm going to see if it'll let me do this now. No, it won't. So I'm not going to be able to have it look like it's over my shoulder, but it should still be right side up. It doesn't really matter for what we're doing. I'll make sure I show that to you in several different angles. But you know, it is what it is. We make the best of it. It is always my suggestion that you watch this class first and then go back, and as soon as the replay is available, paint it at your own pace. And that is especially important with a glass class because there is a timing that I can't control and you can't control. Glass is a little bit of a slippery surface, and it's a little different than painting on wood or canvas or paper. It just has its own quirks. And part of that is uncontrollable by us. The humidity in the air, the temperature, how heavy-handed you are with your paint, how well your paint was shook up. So let's go over a couple of things really quick that are really important for all glass painting. First, there are many, many ways to paint on glass. This is my preferred glass paint, and it's the gloss enamels. DecoArt also makes a glass paint. I just find this to be a little more opaque, and I just have a little more success with it. I'm gonna see if I can find this on my iPad. It would be nice, but you know, nothing seems to be easy. So let me see what I can do here. So the very first thing I like to tell you to do is always make sure you shake up your paints because they do like to settle, and you just want to make sure they're good and shook up. So that's the first thing I am doing for you is I'm just shaking up my paints. I use DecoArt. There are other enamel paints. Folk Art has an enamel paint that is very good. I think Apple Barrel has an enamel paint. I'm not 100% sure. When I started painting on glass years and years ago, it was Delta paint that had permanamel. So things don't ebb and flow as it goes. So that's what I can tell you. I am not being able to find us here. That is kind of frustrating. Maybe it will pop up soon. And I do know, oh, there we are. Look at. I'm a hot mess. There we go. Okay. So I don't see any beyond right now. That's fine. Like I said, I really do encourage you to watch this at your convenience. I'm going to talk like there's somebody there. That's just what I do. Okay. So we talked about shaking your paints. The other thing that's really important is to turn your paint around and to read the manufacturer's directions. And you know, make sure you do that every once in a while too, because I've found that a couple paints have changed their temperature and have changed their time. So this one right now, the one I'm using is DecoArt, the gloss enamels, and it says shake well. We already did that. And if you want it to be top rack, dishwasher safe, you want to clean the surface with alcohol, which I'm going to show you how I do, just regular rubbing alcohol that you have in your medicine cabinet. And then you just let that dry, and it dries in a matter of seconds. Apply 1 to 2 coats, allow to cure for 4 days. I sometimes do that and I sometimes don't. I just make sure it's good and dry, so at least 24 hours. And then this part is important. Place in a cool oven, meaning an oven that hasn't been used for the day. Set your temperature for 325 degrees Fahrenheit and bake for 30 minutes. Cool in the oven with the door partially open. So what I do is I put my glasses in a cold oven. I set the temperature for 325, turn it on, set my timer for 30 minutes, turn it on. When my timer goes off, I turn the oven off, the timer off, and I will prop the oven door open just a bit. I have let them cool completely in a closed oven as well, and I've never had a problem with that. All right, what else does it say? Not for food contact surfaces. So that is one of the reasons a lot of times on glasses, I will make a point to leave a bit of a lip spot. It's not deadly. It's not like that, but I mean, it's just, just making sure that you're keeping it very safe. And if you do something like polka dots and you go all the way up to the rim here and there, that's okay. It's not a big deal. All right, did I cover everything? Indoor, outdoor, water-based, permanent, soap and water cleanup. Does clean up really well, but you do want to make sure you're cleaning your brushes right away. Let's talk about brushes really quick. Use brushes that you are most comfortable with. Sometimes that might mean small flats. Might be a filbert. A filbert is a brush that has more of a rounded tip. You can see that or not. You might be comfortable using rounds. Rounds look like that. You have a point. And for some of the more fine details, you might want a detail brush or a liner brush. Now, this is not, doesn't have anything to do with our project tonight, but this is a new set of detail brushes. They're calling them bridge brushes from Essential Stencil. And I happen to be looking at those today going, you know, I bet some of those might be really nice for some of those smaller details. Okay, let me see what I can do. And always optional, but sometimes a glass of wine while you're painting wine glasses just makes it a little more fun. All right, I'm a bourbon girl, but I'll drink wine. Paper towel and a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and you're going to wipe the glasses just off. What you're doing is kind of making sure that you're removing any grime, any fingerprints that might be on there. Of course, you want to start with a clean glass. I, for the most part, try to paint on at least 2 glasses at a time. That way I have a little more set time. And that's different than dry time. It's just a time where it gets a slightly more tacky, so you can still put a second coat on. What can happen with glass paint is you sometimes put a coat on and you go to put a second coat on, and that second coat can take off the bottom coat. And that, again, has a lot to do with the things I talked about. The humidity in the air, the temperature, how much paint you put on, how heavy-handed you are, how much pressure you use. And that gets to be a little bit of a play game. You just have to experiment on how it works for you. But the reason I like to work on a couple glasses at a time is that, say, the noses. We're going to start with the noses. I'll put the noses on and I can do a couple. When I am sitting down doing many glasses for like our retail location, I've been known to do, 10 to 20 Gnome glasses at a time. Trust me, by the time I get back to the first Gnome to give it a next coat, it's pretty well dry. I'm going to probably just work on 2 tonight. I've got 4 sitting here. I have 2 stemmed and 2 stemless. Let's take a quick peek at our Gnome and kind of go over the steps that we're going to do. Now, they all will take more than 1 coat. So when we do that first coat and it looks really blotchy and gluck, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, that's expected, and that's what we're going to keep going back over so we don't have super sheer paint. You can do some designs that you want to be more sheer, but this we want to have a pretty covered bit. I'm going to turn it back around for you so you can see. I want you to notice right now the beard. The beard is gray first, but when you look at it here, it's white. That gray is a great background because you don't have to put as much white paint on it to make it cover, okay? So let me go over the steps of this real quick with you, and we're gonna get started, okay? This should take us a little more, probably about 1.5 hours to do. And just think, when you replay, you get to buzz through everything I'm talking about now. So we will start doing his nose. We'll give his nose a coat. And then while we're waiting for that nose to set a bit, we're gonna make our own gray, white and black, and we're gonna base in about where we want our beard to be. In this case, our beard kind of goes all the way down, okay? There was a pattern that I gave you guys, and you can set a pattern inside a glass and kind of watch it, but really I try to use very simple shapes and shapes that you can follow along with, like the nose is an oval. The beard's gonna come down from the top of his nose and kind of come to a beard, yeah, that way. So that's kind of how I do that versus worry about putting a pattern on. His hat's gonna be a little wonky. I'm going to tell you to kind of go around his nose with like the brim. And then we're just going to kind of create the shape of it, the top. And we'll fill in the bottom and the top, and you'll have this little gap here that will come in with a color of a hat band. And it can be any color you want. I used that, is it true blue or bright blue? True blue, I think. True blue. But you can use any color you want. Again, those things are going to need more than one coat. Whatever color I used on the hat band, I came and added a little bit on each side of the gnome's beard. I know with the stupid little balls, you can't see it as much, but you can kind of see it that way, okay? Okay. By that time, we hope that we can be able to go back and give our nose another just base coat. It'll just be the base coat. It won't be anything fancy at all. And we will have to bounce around a little bit to see what is and isn't dry. Now, if you want, you can start filling in some beach balls. I will caution you though, that because most likely you're gonna pick it up, you have a chance of smearing those unless you're really good at keeping white. So I did my gnomes and then I went back and did my beach balls afterwards. So nose, beard, hat band, whatever he's wearing on his bottom, back to the nose. By that point, we'll be able to go back and play a little bit with the hat, and we'll be able to start putting in our beard a little bit. And our beard will be done in many applications. You can put your beard in with just white paint and a liner brush like this. There's a liner brush. Or I sometimes will use, not necessary, this is called a wisp brush. This happens to be a kid's wisp brush. You see that there's separation there? And what it does is it allows you to make many strokes at one time of little lines. Now, wisp brushes are also known as fan brushes. They're also known as rake brushes, feather brushes. But the idea is they have these little hairs cut out of them. The set I like a lot and recommend a lot, and it comes like with 3 different sizes. And like I said, these are actually kids brushes. These are Royal Big Kid flat wisps, and they come in a set of 3, and I want to say they're like $7 or $8 through Amazon. So and about that price through Michael's and Hobby Lobby too. So that is an option, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of beards, if you're going to be doing a lot of grasses, things that lots of mini lines will help you with. Okay. One last thing before we get started. I promise this is the last thing. So the color of the nose is very, very sheer. You see that? That is, it's not so sheer, it's so light. I'm sorry, it's light. And it's called Natural Bluff. And you know, we're gonna add some red to him to give him a little bit of a blush. But if you want your gnome's nose to be a little more tan, you can add a drop of brown to it. And that's, you know, most of the time when I'm making flesh colors, I start with this color. I start with a burnt umber, and then I build up by bringing in lighter shades, whether I'm bringing in more golden shades or a little more red shades into flesh when I'm doing real fleshes. So there's nothing wrong with adding brown. And you can obviously add as much to make it as deep as you want it. So let me get you going here. Hello, Sandy. Okay. So, like I said, you can use any brush you want. I'm probably just going to use a little filbert brush. And to give you an idea of how big that nose is, I'm going to use our bottle of paint. And it is about half the size of that, just to give you an estimate. So, I'm not going to get too fancy here. I'm going to pick up some of this lighter color, and I'm going to show you this way. I'm going to make my oval nose. Okay. I might need to clean it up a little bit. It's streaky. I can almost see through it. What I want to do is make my noses about the same size. They don't have to be perfect. I'm getting a little glare, I apologize. And I'm probably just gonna be doing 2, but I wanted to go ahead and do this a couple times just to show you, okay? So it's an oval, my nose is an oval. About in the same place too helps. And it's gonna be sheer for your first coat. Another tool that is handy to have is some Q-tips nearby, because let's say, this isn't so much what you're painting your nose, but you happen to blop this down somewhere else where you don't want it. A Q-tip and the rubbing alcohol will clean it up super, super fast. Okay, so that's all we've done, was just filled in that first bit of the nose. Not very exciting. Now you're gonna make your gray. I'm gonna put you down a little bit so you can see my plate. Down, 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 okay. Okay. So I'm gonna make a gray. So I'm gonna need just a very touch of black. Oh, it's probably way more black than I need. So I'll probably just pull some of that into my puddle of white. And again, you can use any brush you want. I'm just gonna see if I can use this one a little bit. And your gray doesn't have to be super dark. And then you want to start up as high of his nose, right by his nose, and then just kind of come down, think kind of triangle-ish. So I'm going to come up near his nose. Now my nose is still wet, so I don't want to be in my nose. I'm just going to come down that way. Do it again. I'm gonna do a couple of these steps on all of these just so you can see them. So I'm starting up way high. Putting gray under there. And I'm coming down. Stroking down that beard. Okay. 2 more times. And then I'm just going to concentrate on the stemless ones because they're just going to be easier for me to hold, I think, and possibly a better sight line for you guys. I like doing this when it looks like you're over my shoulder, but I cannot figure out how to turn the camera that way today. And remember, this is just a base color underneath my beard. Whoops. So I can expand it if I need to. Once I get my hat on, I decide I need more beard, I can come back and add more. I rarely have to come back and do a second coat on the gray because I know I'm coming back over it with several coats of white, but there's nothing saying we can't. So I'm pushing down, but I'm just trying not to going over my same spot if I can avoid it. Because, let me just show you. If I do it too soon and I go back over with another puddle of paint, I chance picking it up. Sometimes it'll do it, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't want to have spots where I've picked up my paint. But if you kind of even see that or not, but it's pretty streaky. Okay, it's okay though. It's okay. So I'm going to rinse that gray out of my brush. I'm going to wipe my brush on a paper towel. You want to keep your brush as dry as possible. Of course, there's some moisture obviously in the paint, and you're going to have some as you are changing colors, but you just don't want to be adding a lot of water. All right. So I'm going to start shaping my hat. And I'm going to start by just making a rim that kind of goes past his beard over his nose. So a little bit past his beard over his nose. You can make this a straight brown hat. You could make this a yellow straw hat. You can mix any color you want. What I ended up doing for mine was pulling some of that beige and some brown, and I made like a light tan color. Now, like I said, if you wanted to make it a little more straw-like, you could add a touch of yellow to it too. I didn't. I might do that just on this one, just for fun. So I'm just picking a tiny bit of yellow. Okay. So I'm going to start beyond my beard, and I'm just going to kind of go around his nose, beyond my beard. That's all I'm doing to begin with. It's kind of like a big U. U-N. Smile. Frown. Didn't mean to do that, but since I did, I'm going to go ahead and finish this. One, two, three, and let's do one more. Starting beyond my beard, around my nose. Well, I've got this here. I'm going to mix up a little more of that same color. I like brush mixing because I get variations in my color. And I want to just give him kind of a hat look. Hat shape. Okay? It's a beach hat, so it doesn't have to be like a perfect top hat. And I just kind of go up and around it. And they may not all be exactly alike. Again, remember, it's pretty sheer. So if I was going to tell you about where I'm coming up, it's about at a little outside of his nose, up, across, and down. I might give my hat band another quick little go over. And I'm not worried that I'm going over where the hat band is. One, because my other colors would be a little darker. And two, right now, this is just very sheer. One, almost like drawing on your pattern with your paint. Okay? Oops. Okay. So I'm not even gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna take it on a paper towel and really wipe it off good. And I'm gonna go back in with my natural buff color, and I'm gonna pick up just a tiny bit of brown. And I'm going to go ahead and give my nose another coat. Now I want to make sure I'm not picking up paint. So if it starts to pick up, I just leave it alone and I come back to it. One way that you can minimize that is to not overstroke the area. You can see how many lines that one has. Where they go? I'm just going to come in here and then a line down. So there's my extra stroke there. I want to tell you another thing about glass painting is that when you bake it, I don't know the right terminology, but it's like the colors meld together a bit. Not that they mush, but they just get a little softer together. I rinsed my brush, I'm drying my brush. So we've given our nose a couple coats. We've given our hat one coat. Let's go ahead and do one coat of whatever color you're going to make your hat band. I'm going to do mine blue. And because I want to do a little tiny bit of shading on this, very little, I'm just going to lighten it with a little bit of white. You don't have to do that. Or if you had two shades of blue, you could do that too. So I've rinsed my brush. Here's my blue. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of white in there, just lightening it up a little bit. The other thing white does is it sometimes helps your paint cover a little better. And I do want my hat band to go all the way to my edge. And I might need to peek at it as I'm going around my edge. There. Okay. There's my hat band. And this hat looks very different than the hats I did before. That's okay. They'll need another coat as well. I'm kind of following using the size of my brush. This happens to be a number 8. I think it's a filbert, not a flat, but 8 flat and an 8 filbert would be about the same size. Okay. So now I have hat bands. And this is where I chose to kind of add a little bit of, I think it's his bathing suit. I don't know. We can make it whatever we want. But you want to make it wider than his nose. So all I'm going to do is going to come up around, excuse me, I'm going to wipe my brush off, pick up a little more blue here. You're just going to give him a little bit so he's got a little bit on each side. Because you really don't see his feet. Because his beard covers it. Okay. Try not to stick your finger in paint like I just did. And again, you are trying to make them close to the same. They don't have to be exact. Let me show you. Mine are not exact, but they're similar. The other thing, I encourage you that maybe you want him to just have feet that you can see too. By all means, add your own bits to this. I'm not worried if I go over my gray a little bit, again, because I know I'm going to have white. Now, that's too sheer for it to be one and done. So I know it's going to need another coat. I'm going to see, because I'm doing 4 of them, if I can go back and give this a second coat. I may or may not be able to. I'm mixing my blue and my white. Seem to cover okay. Again, a big hint there is to just not be over stroking if you can avoid it. So 1 stroke. My hat's going to need another coat too. When I do something like that, you see that? If I can fix it with my finger, I will. If not, I will grab a little Q-tip and a little water, not water, alcohol or water. And I'll just clean it up. Like that. Okay. So we've given our hat bands a second coat. I don't think we are at the point of being able to give our bathing suit, that's what we're going to call it, a second coat. So I washed the blue on my brush. I'm going to dry off my brush really good, because there might be a little blue in there. And I'm going to go back, if I still have the color, or I'm just going to mix it again. The beige and the brown that I did for the little hat color. If you want to add a little yellow, you can. Again, this was about the width of my brush. If it's slightly different colors, that just adds to the fun of the hat. You're just trying to give it a little more coverage. I kind of went down on my nose a little bit on that one, but that's okay. I'm really not adding any shading or anything to this right now. I'm just giving it another coat. and our hat may still get a little bit of a shape change after we start putting in our beard. Sometimes you don't know what's done until you do the next couple steps. And with a gnome, it's really a lot about getting his nose kind of done first, and then things start to fall into place a lot better. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to rinse the brown out of my brush, dry it off, and even if I'm adding a touch of brown to my buff color, that might be too much, oops. Your nose will probably take at least 3 coats, maybe 4. Before you add any shading to them. Oops, not that one. That one's already done. So this is just getting them to be a really pretty solid coverage of the nose. And again, I'm going to tell you, when you bake them, they kind of meld together a little better. So you won't see all the brush strokes you're seeing when you're putting all these coats on. I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to give my bathing suit, they decided that's the bathing suit, one more coat here to make it a little deeper. And I'm going to look at my hat band. If it looks like it might need a second coat, another coat, I can give it another coat. If it doesn't need it, don't do it. But I know our bathing suit part will need at least one more coat. One, two, three, 4. I picked up a lot of white, did not mean to do that, but that's okay. I don't think these guys needed another coat, but we'll just give it to it while we have it on here. Okay. Now, rinse my brush. Rinse my brush well. We are going to do the first layer of beard on our gnome. And you're going to do that either with the liner brush, or like I said, if you have a rake, a wisp, a feather brush, you can use that as well. You're going to get about the same look. And the difference is going to be more so that this is a really thin liner. This is a little thicker. The thicker the liner, the thicker the amounts. So I'm going to come in here over here at the white. If I use the wisp brush, I'm going to stroke it on both sides so I can still see those separations in there, okay? I'm going to come up as close to my nose as I can, and I'm going to start just stroking down and kind of letting it go beyond that gray and into my blue. This is why I want to make sure my blue is dry. I don't want bluebeards. I'm going to show you this with just a liner next because there's not that different. So there's that. I'm going to rinse this just while I'm doing it so it doesn't dry in there. The enamel paint will dry rather quickly, so you don't want to let it dry in your brushes. I'm going to go with a little thicker brush. When I use my liner, I'm going to pull and twist. And again, I'm going to start near his nose and kind of a little bit of shape following strokes, meaning I'm not going to go left and right. I'm going to come from his nose down. It can go beyond his gray. going to go below. It's going to go onto his bathing suit and maybe a little below that. And that's about the first coat. Look at you guys. Got all these glasses out of them, so keep doing them, right? So I like to kind of start in the middle of his nose and kind of work out. So you can have shorter strokes closer to his nose and then pull longer strokes. You gotta think of a real beard. There's more than one length of hair in a beard. Sometimes you can do this in one or, well, rarely in one, in just a couple, and sometimes it's going to take you many. Again, that kind of depends on how much paint you're applying. All those good things we just talked about. I'm going to grab, I did you a couple both ways. I'm going to go back to this wisp brush on this guy, and I'm going to start. Just pull down. So you're going to do this without breaking any glasses. Another real quick thing, when you are baking them, it's advantageous for you to put them like on a cookie sheet so they don't fall over and break. I've had that happen. All right, so I'm noticing I have a spot right here that I either need to make it part of a hat or I need to come back with a Q-tip and some alcohol or even a little water and clean it up. The more I can clean up as I go, the better it is. Okay? So they don't look exactly alike, but they're coming along, sort of, kind of, right? So let's go back to our noses. But I want to make sure you have a tiny bit of red out too. And you'll see how little paint, I mean, I'm working on 4 glasses and I've got enough paint to do another 4. All right, so I'm going to go back. Like I said, I was using this kind of filberty brush. And I'm going to go back to the color I was using for base coating his nose. I'm going to base coat his nose once again, okay? And with that color in my brush, I'm going to pick up the tiniest bit of red. And I'm going to find a place that I can just blend it back and forth so it becomes kind of a pinkish color. And I'm going to put the pinkish color down, and I'm going to very lightly pity pat it across the bottom of my nose. Now, if I don't have enough color, I'm not going to do another coat right now. I'm going to set it aside, and I'll come back and do another one. I'm going to wipe that off my brush, go back to my base coat, a little more of that color, I have to mix this up. I'm going to base coat my nose again with that color on my brush. I'm going to pick up a little red. And I'm going to pity pat it. I put a little more on this one so I don't have to do this again. If I had enough coverage on my nose, like this guy pretty much does, I might be able to just pity pat the red. If I start picking up color on my nose, that would mean I would need to base coat it first. You decide how red you want your nose to be. Those are a little redder than these guys. These guys are a little pinker, but whatever works. Let's see if I can go back and add this one. I might be able to. Little red noses. I'm going to rinse that out. And I'm going to go back to my hat for a bit. So we know the kind of the color we made it. This one's just a little different coloring, and it's okay. I'll try to do this one for you. But while I go back and give it another coat, I can add a little more brown and make it a little, pull it down a little bit around his beard. And maybe add just a little bits of color of the brown and maybe pick up a little white. And then I know I'm going to come back and add a little detailing too. So you don't do it all at once. And like I said, they do look a little different. That's fine. That's fine. So I'm going to use, you can switch to a round brush if you want. I'm going to stick to this, I think. So this was about the color of my hat. Had a little yellow in there. Okay. And I can decide at this point if maybe I'd like it to be just a little further around on this side. And it might not show up completely, but that's okay. I'm going to want him to have a little more hat there. I'm going to pick up some straight brown. And I'll just lay a little brown right next to his beard. Right next to his nose. Let's see if I can create a little shading there. Maybe I'll shade a little bit right next to his hat band. Not all the way, but here and there. Just adding a couple little bits of color. He's got more of a bucket hat, I think. And again, I'm going to just wipe my brush. I'll go back into more of my base color. I brush mix a lot, so my hats may change color a little bit. Pick up a little of the brown, shade next to his beard, next to his nose. Maybe he's got a little bit of a dip in his hat here. Remember, I can always clean it up with a Q-tip if I go outside my lines. I like that little dip in the hat. So I'm just going to go up here and give him a little dip in the hat too. Oops. Did not need that black right now. We're just going to let that go away. I'm going to try to pick it up with my damp brush, and it's gone. And whatever this is here, let's see if I can get rid of that with a damp brush. I did. Set that aside. So I'm making a little more of my hat color. A little yellow in there. And if it's not exactly the same shade, you've just added some variations. That's all you've done. A little of the straight brown right next to his beard, around his nose. Just a couple of spots of brown. Wipe it off, pick up the base color. It's a beautiful day here in Illinois. I did not get to be outside enjoying it as much as I wanted to, but that's okay. I had made myself a promise this summer that I would at least spend 10 minutes outside each day doing nothing. Today wasn't quite nothing. I was working while I was out there, but it was pretty close. So just add a little bit there. Could use a little more brown in that, but I think it's going to be okay. Rinse that out. All right, let's look at the beard again. Make sure as we're pulling that beard down, we're going out quite a bit off of each side. If you look inside, you can see it's more than just the gray that it covers over. And again, use the brush you have. You want to be pulling, whether you're pulling with a liner or a wisp brush, from fresh paint, okay? A lot of times I will do most of my beard with a wisp brush, then I'll come back and add a couple extra details with just a smaller liner brush. See, I went beyond his bathing suit. And it does not matter if you switch back and forth between a wisp and a liner. Oops. When you're using your wisp, you just want to make sure you still have a lot of separation in those bristles. If you want to add a little curly cues, you can do that. When you're using a wisp brush or any of the others, feather, rake, and you're doing it with, on like say wood, we almost always add water to our paint so it gets a little thinner consistency. But when we're working with glass paint, we don't want to do that. The less water you can use when you're painting on glass, the better it's going to be. It doesn't break down the paint as much, and it keeps the consistency of your paint more consistent. Gee, imagine that. Consistency being more consistent. All right. So there we go. No, we're not done. I'm rinsing my rake brush. Before I go on, I am going to take my liner brush that I had. Where did my liner brush go? It's in my lap. And you can have some flesh on here first, but I'm just going to take a little bit of white, just a little bit, okay? And I'm going to set it down fairly lightly, push down, and lightly pull across. And if it doesn't work, we're gonna do it again. Just want a little mark on the top of his nose. That seemed to be a little too much. We'll see if I can do this better this time. Set it down. Just a little mark, a little highlight mark. Okay, so we got that. Now, I'm going to take the blue, the straight blue, and I'm just going to pull it out from that puddle. I'm going to rotate it. If your paint is dried too much, you're just going to get yourself a new little puddle of it. And I'm going to take that straight blue and I'm going to put it at the bottom. And it may or may not show up, depending on how much you lightened up your blue to begin with. But regardless, what we're doing is we're just kind of cleaning up the line between the hat band and the hat. Wing. Oops. It's just a little cleanup line. Try not to stick your hand in paint like I just did. One more glass. Clean up my end here. Okay. Optional. You can pull a couple little lines from each side. I'll do that on my tall guys. I'm not going to do that on my big guys, my little fat guys. And again, a little highlight in there can just be that extra little step. Didn't even clean my brush, just picked up a little white, and I'm just going to set it down and lift it up. I'm setting it down, pulling and lifting. Cling. And I'm doing this on the left side because I'm going to put his sunglasses on the right side. Make it a little darker. Just a highlight, okay? Rinsing that brush out. We're going to add his sunglasses next. Are his sunglasses next? Yeah, we are. I think. We're going to do the, you know what? I think we're going to do the overalls next. What I need you to do is look at your beards and determine if they have enough. Now, this is where I laid my hand on it. Can you see that? So I'm not going to fret. I'm just going to come back in here and I'm just going to add a couple little lines where I boo-booed that. And now you can't even tell. And I'm going to decide I'm going to just turn his beard up a little bit, okay? I'm going to look and see if maybe I need a couple extra lines here and there. Make sure I'm nice and tight against his nose. I'm going to set him aside. So I want him to set up a little bit so I can come back in and add that inner tube. And I don't want to put wet paint on top of wet paint. And if I did something like right here, I went over his nose there, that's an opportunity to go back with that little bit of fleshy color that I made and a little bit of red and just clean it up just a little bit, just barely touching it. And he's all better. So I'm just gonna take a quick peek at these guys. You know, same thing. I shouldn't have rinsed my brush. See if I can pick up a little bit of this right here. I'm gonna clean up right next to where I overdid the white there. Let's check the other guy out too. Just right here, I seem to miss him. All right, but on these guys, I can look and see if they might need a little cleanup with my smaller round or liner brush, just to kind of clean them up a little bit. And again, then I want to let this white dry. That's where we're going to go back and do the detail on his hat. I'm always amazed how good the beards look after like the second coat. They just all start to come together. All right, so let's look at the hat real quick to see what else we can do to add a little more detail into it. And it's not much. It really isn't much. It's with some black. It's kind of a couple little lines, a couple little crisscrosses. I did not outline it. Okay, I just added some little crisscross lines. However, before we do that, let's go ahead and do our glasses first. Make sure you've got a new puddle of paint, a new puddle of yellow, whatever color sunglasses you want, but my yellow is dried out, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to grab this super quick. So, hang on. These gnomes need more wine. My girls have been barking like up a storm today. I don't know why. There's nothing new going on. Okay, so let's break their glasses down. Okay, they're kind of hanging off the hat band. They are a line, a half circle, that we're going to do with yellow. And yellow is a notoriously sheer color. So add just a tiny bit of white to it first. We're going to have to come back again, give it another coat so we can make them a brighter yellow. But if we add that white to it first, it'll just make it a little more opaque. So here's my yellow. I'm just going to add a touch of white. And I'm just using a liner brush. I really should pull one of these out. That'll be good. So, they're kind of hanging off of my... Try to keep your hand out of your paint. Details can always be done after it dries too. But I kind of just have this line. Okay. And then I'm going to do a loop. And I'm going to do a loop. And they're going to look really funny to begin with. Okay? Line, loop, loop. Line, loop, loop. So here's my line. Here's my loop. Here's my loop. I'm going to be happy to have 2 sets of glasses done. So I'm going to hang them off of here. There's the line. There's the loop. It's not perfect. It's okay. Look how messy that is. It's okay. They'll get cleaned up. Line, loop, loop. We do the yellow first. You come back and give the next coat of yellow before we do the black, because the black is what cleans it up. All right. Because that one's really going to need to get cleaned up. I'm actually going to open these. Let's see if there's one that might make me happy. There might be. I'm going to grab what they're calling a 2. It's a nice little brush. I've not used these at all, obviously. All right. We got to make sure that dries okay. So is it really done here? Let me see if we're dry enough here. I think we are. Okay, so before I even use that fun little brush, I'm going to go back to the 8 I was using. So I'm using a filbert. You can use a flat. If you need a clean puddle of white, get it. If you're fine, don't worry about it. What we're going to do is we're going to go from the bottom of the hat, make a little bit of a smile all the way to the other side of the hat. It's pretty wide. So we'll start here. And you're not going to see it to begin with. Sometimes it's easier to start both directions and meet in the middle. Sorry. This is one that's hard to see. You're not really going to see the white, but you're trying to create the shape. Okay? I need more white paint. I'm starting. I'm meeting in the middle. It's a big white smile on a white beard. But we want it to be fairly wide. because it's an inner tube, right? And yes, we'll add hands too, but to begin with, we have to get this inner tube on here. And we will create a lot of shape with it when we add the red and the black details. Try to make them about the same on each of you guys. Okay, we'll let those set for a bit. This isn't so much about getting more white on there as it is about letting it set enough so we can come back with black and the red so they don't smear into being gray and pink. So back to our sunglasses. Keep your hands out of your inner tube now. We're going to come back and do a line loop loop with straight yellow. 9, loop, loop. Sunglass color, doesn't have to be yellow. And I stuck my hand in the paint again. There's my 9 and loop, loop. It should just take 2 coats. It might take 3. Let's let those dry for just a second. Rinse your brush. Now we'll add a little bit of those black details. So they're just a couple little slash marks on the hat. We'll do that before we come in and add the centers of the sunglasses. So I'm going to roll my paint. This is where I said I might use that other fun brush. Let's see. Whenever you get a new brush, make sure you rinse it because there's usually sizing in it to keep it, keep the shape while it's being shipped. So I'm just rolling it out. So I have nice, crisp details. So I'm going to accentuate this little bit of a dip in my hat. I'm going to give it a couple little marks there, maybe a couple slashes here. There's no particular place they need to be, but you're just trying to give it a little more detail. If you really felt you needed to, you could outline it. I like it looking a little, we'll say rustic. But I like to accentuate that little dip up here. And there's a couple little slashes, a couple lines. You have the same twice. Accentuate that little dip. A couple little slashes. A couple slashes here. Last one for slash for the hat. Stay up on the tip of your brush for thinner lines. It's good. Now we'll come back. This little brush is going to work lovely. Roll it. And I'm merely going to fill in the sunglass part. So if I need to shape that yellow up a little bit, the black will cover it quite nicely. I picked up new glasses today and I must say, I'm amazed. I can see much better. Oops, I missed, well, I say that and then I missed a big spot in the middle of my sunglasses. The big difference for me was I actually bought sunglasses this time, and it was amazing coming home how much better I could see with sunglasses than my regular glasses and squinting. Okay, 2 glasses down, ding. I think these little details are just that extra pop that people don't always think about, but they make a big difference. That you actually took the time to give him sunglasses. Sorry, I get quiet when I have to do little detail work. Okay. Not too bad. Take it, all 4 of them? I did. Okay, well, so why I have this black on my brush, I am going to outline the top of my Lifesaver and the bottom of my Lifesaver. And on the top, I'm going to give him a little extra, right? From almost like a little extra triangle at the top, just so it looks like he's it's kind of like the shadow of it. So I'm going to do that on all of them, and then we'll add the arms or the hands. If you didn't love the shape of your Lifesaver, this would be an easy time to change it a little bit with your liner. I'll say it's a little hard for me to do this from this angle, but we're going to make it work. They look a little silly right now. They look much better once we actually had the red and the hands. The hands made a big difference. When I did these, I actually showed them to my membership group and said, what's missing? It was like they all went hands. I was like, oh. Because many times when we paint gnomes, they don't have hands. So I hadn't really thought about hands. All right, don't worry if they're a little messy at this point. We can clean them up. Clean your brush, wipe it off, and we're going to go back and make our little flesh color. With the flesh or flesh and brown, whatever you used. I used a little bit of both. So the hands, were a little tricky for me. So you can do the red first, but I think we're going to put at least our first coat of hands, because your hands, you know, are going to take more than one coat. So let's try to look at a good way to judge where they're at. So if my nose, bottom of my nose is about at the top of my Lifesaver, my hands start just a little below my Lifesaver, off to the side, and come up about halfway. Does that make some sense? Maybe, hopefully. So I'm going to use my round brush. And this one may need some adjusting, but we'll figure it out in a second or two. So I know I want him to be down here, and he's going to come up, and I can give him fingers when I do his detailing, but I want him about the same side on each side. And then you're going to need to just kind of look at him and make sure that makes a little bit of sense. I think because I had to come back and add them, they became a little more of a challenge for me to think about how I actually did them. But don't stress, they're just little hands coming, reaching around the side. I know I don't want to see that black line through there, so probably might be better off to do these beforehand, but I know I didn't because I added them at after the fact. So a little more ovalish than roundish. And I did come back and add some fingers to them, but they're going to need more than one coat, so just let them be. Let them be, let them be. And come back and get yourself a little clean red. And we want to add some stripes. So we need to make sure our white is good and dry. Don't think we're going to need another coat. I think we're good enough. So I kind of started in the middle with a slight curve and did 1, 2, 3. Let's go back to the middle. 1, 2, 3. So 5 of them total. So let's start with this guy. I'm going to go into my red, and I'm going to curve him slightly, not a lot, just slightly. And then I'm going to give him about that distance before I come to the next one. I'm going to try to stop when I hit my hand. And then when I come on this side, I'm going to kind of curve it the opposite way. And I might need to add an extra one on this guy. It's got a little big. And if they're a little pinky, that's okay. Just know you can come back and give them another coat. Oops, that one we don't want to do. We already did that one. And when we're doing pairs of glasses, I sell my glasses in pairs. So I try hard to make them look close, but I know they never are perfect. So I don't fret if one has more stripes than the other. And I'm not even overly worried if they're exact distances apart. It's just paint. And there are no mistakes. Lots of design changes. If you happen to see my live today, lots of design changes. We're going to have to go back and give that one some serious thought to get it fixed. But that's okay. So I've got my stripes on. I know, at least on the first one, I was going to talk much, Tammy, and need to go back and give it a second coat here and there. And sometimes your second coat isn't everywhere. Sometimes it's just hit and miss. Really all I'm trying to avoid is super pink stripes, and I don't have really any of those. Most of them are fine. What lighter color there is just ends up looking like a highlight, right? Make your paint work for you. All right. Now, carefully, rinse your brush. I just saw a little tiny detail I missed. So go back to your small little detail brush and little tiny slashes in the glasses and 1 or 2 little slashes on the hat with white. Okay. And line here, there, line there. Those little details, like I said before, make a difference. Couple little lines in the glasses. Extra little swoosh here. Oops, gotta have some paint on your brush, Dan. Cool beans. If you need to make more detail cleanups on your stripes, you can. I didn't get that picky. Okay, let's go back and look at some details here. First, we're going to go give another coat on our hands. Then we're going to come back and add some detailing onto our Lifesaver. So that's where you're going to check out, showing a little more depth right on the top part. And then they get very sketchily outlined between segments and little dashes on the top and the bottom. So let us take one. And let us go first to the giving of a second coat of fleshy color on all of our glosses. Oops. So as we are getting down to doing the little final details, remember, once your painting is done, you want to give it a quick once over to see if maybe you have any paint splotches that you didn't want in places that you can clean up easily with a little Q-tip and alcohol. And then you're going to let them dry completely. And before you bake them, I always suggest really looking at the glass and seeing if you can remove any fingerprints. I'll show you the beach ball real quickly too. But removing your fingerprints before you bake is a good idea. Okay, so I'm using black, and I'm going to come back in, and this is where I'm going to line. I'm going to do a little sketchy lines on each side of the segments and little dashes on each edge of my Lifesaver. And if there's some spots I just need to clean up a little bit, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm being sketchy, meaning I'm not doing this perfectly. And then get some little detail . One done. And my little dashes. Do that on these tall ones real quick as well. And it's also my chance to clean up anything I might need to. Embrace a bit of imperfection and you will enjoy painting a whole lot more, I promise you. And trust me, there's still some things I get very stressful about when I paint. Special orders still drive me nuts. And I still tell myself I'm not going to do them, and then I do. Father's Day weekend, I was doing a big project for a baby shower, and one of the attendees of the baby shower decided she needed a Father's Day gift, and it was now the Saturday before Father's Day. I need to learn to say no to those things. Okay, on our little hands, you need to rinse that black out and just go into the brown. And I just outlined the hands and I just gave them the ideas of little fingers. Nothing overly fancy. Into your brown, make sure your paint is fresh enough so it's flowing easily. So I'm going to go around my little paw. And then I'm going to create little fingers. 1, 2, 3. I don't know how many they have. Cute, cute, cute. So I've done my black. Come around with the brown. And define some separation. I think these would be super, super fun because without really trying to, they ended up being red, white, and blue. So how fun for the upcoming holiday. And I'm not sure I realized they were red, white, and blue until this very minute. Which probably means I should get them into a shop. Oops. That one was already done because that one's signed. If you are comfortable with a liner brush, I really do suggest signing your pieces. I tell most of my students that I think signing your work, if nothing else is good for you, so you can go back and go, oh wow, look how much better I am. Because the way we all get better is with practice. All right, take a quick peek at these guys. They've got noses, they've got beards, they have lifesavers, 2 hands, sunglasses, and a hat. That is pretty much our summer gnome. If you want to add beach balls, the simplest thing really would be to add dots, just using the end of your brush and just do dip dots. These have beach balls, so they were painted white first, and then I just did segments of colors on there. Probably more work than you need to do. I will show you one. I make one bigger on the opposite side of these. So I'm going to start with some white, and I'm going to draw a circle, okay? And I'm just going to let my circle dry for a second or two. Okay. I'm making this one bigger, like I said. The other one had 3 small ones. I'm going to do one big one on this set. I'm going to make another circle. And then I'm going to check and make sure that my circles are about the same size on each glass. Close. I'm going to want to let those dry enough so I can give them a next coat before I give them their details. So their details are any colors you want, but they're done in sections. So you have a white section, a color section, a white section, a color section. That sounds so bad. I'm so sorry. White, green, white, yellow, white, blue, white, orange. And they kind of are almost more of like a pinwheel. And then if you look at a beach ball, it has this circle. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes they're red. That kind of holds those segments together. Wow. That didn't sound right at all. Oh. Let's see if I can give my beach balls another coat. They might be too wet, but we're going to try. I'm drying off my brush. So when I know something is super wet underneath, I'm just going to give it a very light touch when I'm going to put the next coat on it, meaning I'm not pressing down hard at all. And that often is sufficient to not pick up paint. And if I start picking up paint, I know I just have to stop. There is no magic to that. It just, sometimes you're putting on more paint than others. Sometimes it's the humidity, whatever. Then you can either switch to a smaller flat or just a round. It doesn't really matter. And then you're just going to put your segments in a couple different colors. Don't know that I grabbed a green, so let me see if I can mix up a little green real quick. Because we know yellow and blue make green, right? It's not the best green, but it's a green. So I'm going to start about in the middle, and I'm going to curve a section and curve a section, and that's going to be my green section. This is very wet paint, so I'm kind of picking up a little bit of my white too. Doesn't matter where it starts. It's going to be a little narrower at the top, a little wider at the bottom. Then I'll clean that brush, and I will pick another color. We're going to go a little, we'll go on the opposite side. Not going to need much. So I'm going to pick up a little red. And I'm going to go by the center out. very wet. Okay, I'm gonna rinse that. I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow. Like a little yellow section. Oops. My yellow. Now, I've seen beach balls that are polka dotted, so they don't all have to be segmented like this, but this was the inspiration I had for this one. Okay, we need an orange, so let's pull a little yellow and a tiny bit of red. A little more red, a little more yellow, because yellow and red make orange. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white. Not my favorite shade of orange, but it'll work. And we will add a little blue center connector on this guy. I'll rinse my brush. I'm going to go into that blue we used, maybe, hopefully. And I'm just going to make a circle that kind of connects them all. All right, and then on mine, what I did is I outlined them loosely with black. Well, maybe not so loosely, and added some little dots or little slashes. You can be creative. Meaning there is no right, there's no wrong. Just have a little bit of fun with it. So I'm going to start by just kind of outlining this one. I might need a little paint to do that. Hey guys, I would love to know what you're looking for coming up with fall projects. I know that summer is a really busy time for all of us. And for me, July is going to be a little off because hubby is having surgery and I need to see how he's doing before I make a lot of plans. So I probably won't have a lot of classes scheduled. Do my best to do my normal lives and throw a few things in. But it might be a little more spontaneous. That's where the joy of replay is nice. Now I have been invited by Facebook to try out one of their new forms for classes. So I would really like to do that. I just don't know what people are really interested in. So if there's something particular that you would really like to do, let me know. And I can see if I can work that in. So again, I just outlined it lightly and I'm just little dashes to kind of separate the sections. And then I'm going to give them just a couple little lines on each side so they look like they might be moving in the air. They might not be, but that's what we're going to envision they are. Okay, so there is our gnome. our summertime gnome. He's ready to hit the water. Here is the ones that you saw previously. So they look pretty close. There they go. And like I said, if you can, go ahead and give them a sign. If not, that's okay too. So, hey, thank you for watching, whether you were watching live or whether you were watching on the replay. Thank you so much for supporting Cheers to Creativity. Thanks so much for all you guys do. Whoa. Until I see you again, please be kind, be safe. Cheers. Bye-bye.